Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. So the moment has come where sadly my 2021 Porsche Cayman was involved in an accident. So it was a super bummer that it happened so soon after I just got that car. And in this video, I'm going to go over exactly how the claim paid out, show you guys the damage, and talk to you about the way that insurance works when you settle with your guest directly, which is what I did in this situation. So let's jump right into it and let me show you guys what happened to the Porsche. Now, it was really difficult to film, and this was one of those interesting damages where it actually looks better than what it was. So it was worse than the way it looked. As you can tell, because of the color of the paint, it's very difficult to capture all the different dings and dents that are in the passenger side door panel, but it is actually quite crinkled. And the door was completely misaligned, and it was having trouble opening and closing the door as well. So what happened in this situation? Sadly, it happened on a trip where the car only went out for 1 day, and the renter was actually renting a Kia, I believe, and rented the Porsche for a day to take his son out. And unfortunately, they had stopped at a rest stop and they were parked in a parking lot and they were sideswiped, and it was actually a hit and run. So they were never even able to collect the third party's insurance information, the person who did the damage. So pretty interesting situation. And I guess now seems like an appropriate time to ask you guys to smash that like button in honor of my Porsche Cayman being smashed on Turo. Show the car some love, and let's get into how we started to resolve this claim with the guest directly. Now, what happened was after the guest brought the car back, he talked to me about exactly what the insurance process through Turo looks like. And it can be really confusing, especially if you're a new host on the platform and you're not really used to all the ins and outs of how Turo's insurance works on the host end and on the renter's end. Now, the renter disclosed to me that he actually declined all coverage through Turo when he booked the car. And so he was a bit worried that he was going to have to come out of pocket to pay for the damages. And of course, it being a Porsche, it could definitely end up being very expensive. So he said that he would like to go through his personal insurance coverage and resolve it directly. And if that didn't pan out, that he was willing to possibly pay out of pocket if the repairs weren't astronomically expensive. So I told him that I was fine with that. He seemed like a stand-up guy. He definitely had all his information on hand. So I felt comfortable pursuing that situation directly with the guest. Now, in this scenario, I was on the 70% host protection plan through Turo, which meant I had a $250 deductible had I had tried to resolve the claim through Turo directly. And of course, trying to be business savvy, I wanted to avoid coming out of pocket for that $250 deductible, which isn't huge in the grand scheme of things. So we started the process to resolve it directly. Now, if you make the decision to resolve with your guest directly, you still want to file that claim through Turo so that you have documentation of the incident. And in case things don't work out with your guest directly, then you can always revert back to Turo's host protection plan within a 20-day window. So it's a really great backup plan should things not pan out with your guest, which can totally happen. I mean, somebody can ghost you, somebody's insurance can decline coverage, and then, the renter is out of luck, but you want to make sure you're covered as a host. Now, insurance is definitely a huge topic because there are so many different points of insurance when you're a Turo host. You have your own host protection plan, and then you have your own sort of personal or commercial coverage on your vehicles outside of Turo. Then you have the renters who have the option to get insurance through Turo when they rent, or sometimes they have personal coverage, but it's not always covered. And so it can get very confusing. And this is a huge topic of discussion, which actually takes a lot of time to understand. So I do have a course. It's at powerhost.club, and you can click on the links down below. And there is a thorough breakdown of exactly how insurance works, how I insure my cars and really the best way to go about it. I have 12 plus hours of content in the course, so it's very detailed in all the different facets of how Turo works from A to Z. So I think that's something that you guys would really enjoy. Now in this situation, initially before the renter wanted to file a claim with his personal insurance provider, he wanted to see if American Express would cover him. This was something that was also researched by the Points Guy. And if you guys have ever read any of those blogs, then as host, we know that Amex does not cover Turo car rentals because they don't actually see Turo as a car rental company, because Turo is in fact sort of a peer-to-peer car sharing network, and therefore it doesn't fall within the guidelines of a car rental. Now, the host wanted to go through Amex, and I did sort of in a very nice way let him know that, hey, just a heads up, Amex is going to deny you because they don't provide coverage for this. But he wanted to find out on his own, and he did. He went through Amex, they went back and forth, and eventually they did let him know that they would not cover him on this vehicle rental. Then finally, he defaulted back to his host protection plan. What made this situation very interesting is that he was actually Canadian, and so his personal car insurance was a company out of Canada. And so that was the first time I had to deal with, a non-American company. And so it was a very interesting process. The good news was that his personal insurance company did provide coverage for the damages that took place during his trip, which is fantastic because then that meant that the car was going to be covered and I didn't have to come out of pocket for that $250 deductible, which I would have had to do if I had gone through my host protection plan on Turo. So that is the benefit of resolving directly with your guests. The only downside, in my opinion, about resolving directly with your guests is that it can get very time consuming, and you do have to sort of really stay on top of it because you are working in a 20-day window to get confirmation that the damages that happen to your vehicle are in fact going to be covered, and you need to get that in writing in order to move forward, because you don't want to surpass that 20-day window and then you will just not have any coverage at all. So in this case, I did get confirmation, and the renter was happy going through his insurance as well because it saved him a lot of out-of-pocket expense. So now going back to the damages that occurred to the Porsche, I got it to the shop right away, and it was a 9-day repair, which isn't the worst, and not bad for the type of damage that it was, in my opinion. It was a 9-day repair, and it ended up being about $2,400. So it was actually quite less than what I thought it was going to be, and they did a really great job. And so that's pretty much how things panned out. I did end up losing 9 days in business, but I did save on the $250 deductible. Now, the nice thing about going directly with your guest is that you can claim for additional things such as loss of use and diminished value. So currently, I'm going through the claim of loss of use and diminished value, and I'm hoping to recoup some of my losses for the 9 days that the vehicle was down and off the platform, which is really, really nice because when you're on the 70% host protection plan on Turo, which is what I think many hosts are on, you don't get loss of income. The 60% plan, where you give Turo 40% of your revenue, does actually cover loss of income, and the 70% plan does not. So going directly through a renter's insurance, sometimes you can recoup some of those losses, which is really nice because it sort of helps offset some of those days that you've lost of business. So these are just some things that you want to take into consideration when you are dealing with claims. Now, we are in a peak Turo rental season, especially with the pent-up travel demand and people getting out after a year of really being stuck at home. We're seeing a lot of movement in the market, which is all very exciting. But with that comes high claims rates, right? This is when you begin to see a lot of accidents taking place. There's more people on the road, and who knows, maybe people aren't as comfortable with driving because they've spent so much time at home over the past year and a half. And so I'm seeing that myself as well, with my vehicles that I have on Turo, there is a sudden increase in claims. And that's why it's really important for you to understand exactly how insurance works. And you want to understand exactly how to document the conditions of your cars before and after every single trip, which you can refer to my video on the card above and kind of get a clue of how I take photos of my cars and get them ready. This is also something that the course really details very well and will walk you through every step of the process. And so you also want to pay attention that not all insurance providers will cover Turo. And I had a recent experience as well. I actually recently rented, I believe it was a 2018 GLA 250, which is a Mercedes-Benz off of Turo. And the standard protection per day that I rented the vehicle from Turo, the standard insurance protection was $35 a day, which is pretty expensive on top of the day rate and the trip fee. And I really wanted to avoid paying that if I could. I booked the car on my Amex, but Amex doesn't cover Turo rentals. So then I called my insurance provider and I found out that because I am a California resident, my insurance provider, which is one of the major companies, does not cover Turo rentals because they don't view them as Turo rentals. So if you're in states like California, Maryland, Oregon, you are not covered by Geico to rent a Turo car. They don't consider that a rental car. So if you are renting off of Turo, which if you're a host, I highly recommend that you should so that you can really try out the system and get a good feel for it, you do want to check with your insurance provider if you have coverage on a Turo rental. So insurance is really in such a gray space when it comes to Turo, and it seems like as time goes on it's getting better and better. There are better solutions, but it's difficult to navigate all the different parts of insurance because there's so many moving pieces to being a Turo host, and especially if you're renting on Turo as well. So that's something that you really want to pay attention to. You want to make sure that you are calling and finding out where your coverage can come from because it seems to be different by state. It seems to be different by insurance provider. And so these are all things that you really want to look into. So here's a peek at what the Porsche looks like now. It's all repaired and back out on trips. And, you know, I'm so happy that it wasn't worse than what it was, but you just got to be ready for when these things happen because they are definitely inevitable. All right, you guys. On that note, that is it for me. Wanted to share with you guys the story of what happened to the Porsche Cayman, my 2021 baby, which I love so much, brand new. Unfortunately had its first accident, but thankfully everything is okay and she's back on the road and doing well. So I'm excited to have you guys join my powerhost.club community. Check out the course. Once again, my name is Saimah and this is Saimah's Experience. If you like this channel, be sure to subscribe and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.